Hi, today's video is all about a Sony lens, the 2070 f4G. So the 2070 f4G is a perfect kind of lightweight for the focal range zoom that's really good for traveling, video, and actually getting up close to things. So I've had this lens for probably about a year and a half now. It's got pretty much extensive use from me in a number of ways. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about the build quality. It's pretty light, it's well balanced on the camera. It weighs this amount. 2070 is a very big focal range. It starts at 20mm, which is a really wide angle field of view. Then it goes to 70mm, which is more of your portrait style field of view for this small little lens. Though it does extend out, as you can see here. It's got a couple buttons which you can set for custom settings, such as focus, hold, and so on. You've got a lot of choice in the Sony menu what you can actually set it as. Focus ring. Now the focus ring feels very slack and loose, to be honest. I'm not so much of a big fan, especially coming from a lot of manual lenses, but it does its job and it does its job well. It just feels very loose. Then you've got zoom ring here. And as it's a G lens, not a G master, but a G lens, you do have an aperture ring here. You can have it as declicked or clicked. So when it's clicked, it sounds more like this. And unclicked, no sound really at all, except for when it hits the end. You can set it to automatic. You can actually lock that in place, which is very handy because while traveling, it is very easy to knock it into, say, f22 and you pick up your camera and it's suddenly very dark. And then you have to remember, oh yeah, I've set it at that. Where if you put it to automatic, you can set it via your camera. Overall, it feels pretty light for what it is. It's made from a hard plastic, as most Sony lenses are now, including their G Masters. Though it does feel like it could take a bit of a beating. It also has weather sealing, and you do get this lens cap with it as well, which is a nice touch. It has a 72mm thread on the front, so you can add filters and so on. It extends quite far, but it's still very light and very good for traveling around with. So the big selling point for this lens is the zoom range. 20mm to 70mm is a big amount of zoom range. I'm going to do a quick living room test to show the range on this camera. I look really small in this room at the moment, but that's because I've got it on 20mm, and 20mm is very wide. So now I'm going to zoom into me at 70mm to give you an idea. And here I am at 70mm. As you can see, I'm really zoomed in now. Also, you'll notice at 70mm, it slightly blurs out the background there. In fact, it looks very close, but it's actually quite far away. So this is 70mm. As you can see, it's very close. Now, if we zoom back out to 20mm, let's show you how wide that is. And here we are at 20mm. And you can see we've got the whole room in there. I think we've even got my dog down there. So that'll give you an idea of the range from right up to me to right back here at 20mm. Obviously you haven't got the fast aperture of some other lenses like a 24-70, f2.8, you're still missing an extra stop. To be honest, I normally would go for something a little bit faster, so having an f4 lens was a definite choice at the end of the day. A lot of video work, you're going to use f4 or more anyway, and photography, if you're doing landscapes, you're going to want to stop it down. You don't need everything blurred all the time. If you do, this isn't the lens for you, though you can get some blurring, and I will talk about that in a minute. It's also very good for getting up close. It's almost macro capabilities. I like filming a lot of insects, so you're going to see a lot of insects now, which I've filmed up close. But it's also good for product shots. I think probably a majority of my thumbnails recently I've actually taken on this lens because you stop down anyway when you want a lot of things in focus. You don't want to take a picture of a camera, say, and just have like a little slither of it in focus. You want to have the whole thing, or at least the majority of it. And that's where I think this lens shines more than anything else, and it's something I didn't even think about when I bought it. So I don't think I could get rid of it now because it is so good for doing these thumbnails and doing close-up video. It's really fun for street photography. You could get 2070, which is a big range. It's almost close to being parfocal. That means when you're zooming in through the range, if you put it in manual mode, it should stay in focus. from far to close. So if you're at 20mm, you've got it in focus, and by the time you get to 70mm, it should still be in focus. So as you can see here with this little test I did, it's not actually quite parfocal. Here, where I've put focus mapping on, as I zoom in and zoom out, you can see by a couple of millimeters it just knocks it slightly out of focus. At the 20mm and at the 70mm it's almost spot on. It's just those little steps in between. If you put autofocus on while zooming in and out rather than manual focus as I have here, that should bypass that problem. In manual, it's not quite there. If you turn it up to say f6.3 or f8, you probably won't notice it because more of the scene will be in focus, but just something to be aware of. Though on the positive side, you can also see here where I've got it on video and I zoomed into the white wall in the background, you don't really see much vignetting either, which is a very nice sign. These are real strong points for this lens, as well as the sharpness. It's not interesting, I'll be honest, like some primes with more of a vintage look and so on. This is going to be a good quality lens all the way through, and it's not going to be the most interesting thing you see. Big Achilles heel has to be the f4 aperture. Not only you're not going to get the blurriest of backgrounds, especially at 20mm, not that you would with the faster lens anyway, but you're not going to get much. Do get a bit, and that's what I think this is good at. If you're going on holiday and you want to take some pictures and video there, for daytime this is great. This time of year in the UK it's very grey and it's not the best lens, but it will work for that okay this time of year. In the winter in this country, about 3 or 4 o'clock, it does start getting dark, and this lens isn't the best for that. Though you can whack up the ISO and it is still very usable, I would prefer to use a prime at that point. But that would probably be the same with an f2.8 as well. Prefer to use f1.4 or f1.8 prime at that point, just so I'm getting a nice clearer image. And even then I might still stop it down depending on the situation. It's not an f2.8, that extra stop of light does make a little bit of difference. So if you're willing to accept that and you have a prime to pair with it, I think this is an excellent lens, especially for traveling, because you get a massive focal range of 20mm to 70mm in a pretty small body with excellent autofocus. The autofocus on this is snappy and fast. I'm using it on the A7 IV at the moment and no problems there. For ages I used it on the Sony A7 IV and the ZV-1. No problems there at all. And it really keeps up with the latest AI autofocus as well that Sony's doing. So I did a couple of my normal tests, checking pages on a book and checking bright and dark objects, looking for colour fringing. And with this lens there's very little amount of it. You really have to zoom in, as you can see here. Okay, I hope this video has been helpful. Please let me know. If you've owned the 2070 f4G, thought about owning the 2070 f4G, or you've been put off buying the 2070 f4G by maybe the f4 aperture, please let me know in the comments below. Give you your opinion on it. I'll be interested to see what you say about it. Thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you again in my next one. Thank you. Bye bye.